Hallelujah. Welcome. Hi, Joe. Shades of Cascades, 1,000 points. First one here. Hi, Darkin. Thanks for the music. Hi, Chris. So, my friend Reed, Nice Wonder, Cordial Curiosity, said, "Hey, Doug, check out this video on the hiddenness of God." It was on Ben Shapiro's Facebook page, so I did. And I don't think I've really talked about this whole idea of the hiddenness of God, but I think it's a great topic because I think it really does bother and is a source of doubt for believers in Christianity or any God that is not tangible. And so I wanted to play, I just typed in YouTube, hiddenness of God. I have a main video I want to look at from, I think he's, no offense, Matt, if you ever hear this, but relatively a no-name guy. But let's go to the king himself, shall we? William Lane Craig. He's asked the question, what's up with God being invisible?
Yeah. Obviously, God could make his existence or Christ's existence more evident than he has. He could have the stars spell out God exists in the sky, or he could have every atom inscribed with the label made by God. So clearly, God could make his existence a lot more obvious.
Remember those 2 points, the stars in the sky and the atoms being labeled.
But I think what the point you were making is the salient one. God isn't interested in just getting people to believe that he exists, to add one more piece of furniture to their ontology of the universe. He wants to bring people into a loving, saving relationship with himself.
Okay, but what has to happen first, William Lane Craig? You're saying that God just doesn't want you to believe or know that he exists. He wants to have a loving relationship. But can you really love something or someone that you don't believe exists?
And I think that God in his providence knows how to so order the world so as to bring the maximal or optimal number of people freely into relationship with himself.
Bring the maximal number of people freely unto himself. But William Lane Craig, don't you believe that God chooses the believer, not the other way around? And don't you believe that narrows the gate to salvation and wide is the gate to destruction that God himself has set up?
And he knows that it isn't necessary or profitable to have Jesus of Nazareth appear miraculously to every single person in his lifetime in order to provide sufficient grace for salvation to everybody. In fact, it's possible that in a world in which God's existence was as plain as the nose on your face, in which Jesus was constantly appearing in people's bedrooms, that they would get rather annoyed at the effrontery of this intruder popping into their
Annoyed by the presence of God in physical form?
Houses all the time uninvited, and it wouldn't lead at all to a deeper faith or love in him. So I think that we can trust God's wisdom in providentially ordering the world in such a way that people are given adequate but not coercive evidence for his.
Well, if you really believe in him and love him, then yeah, of course you should trust in this God. But what if you don't? That's the question. What if you don't even believe this God exists? How would you even trust that this is God's will and that he wants to be hidden?
Existence, and the question then for us is, how will we respond to that? It's not an adequate response to complain that you want more evidence. You need to look at the evidence that you do have.
You shouldn't ask for more evidence?
And to make a decision on that basis. But I don't think that there's any reason here to think that God would do what you suggest. It may be that would do nothing in terms of bringing.
You think it might do nothing? Do you think it would actually hurt instead of help?
Greater number of people into a saving relationship with himself.
You really stuttered there at the end. Okay, but remember I said, listen, he brought up 2 examples of what God could do to reveal himself, like align the stars. It says something like Yahweh's real, whatever, or put his signature on every atom. This was the one of the early hits on YouTube when I typed in divine hiddenness, and of course, Sean McDowell. If you watch this, I'm not purposely picking on you. You just happened to be there when I typed it in. And what I found interesting is that Sean McDowell basically is reiterating what William Lane Craig says.
Have you ever wondered why God seems so hidden?
Yes.
If he wants followers, why wouldn't he make the evidence for his existence and how he wants us to live clear?
Yeah, why wouldn't he make it clear?
I remember when I was a college student, even though I've been a Christian my whole life, I hit a period of real questioning and doubt. And I read this atheist blogger, and he said, if God exists, why doesn't he do something like arrange the stars to say Jesus is Lord? Or why doesn't he write on every single cell made by Yahweh? After all of our toys say made in China.
Okay, now this might be petty, but he said he got this from an atheist blogger.
Been a Christian my whole life. I hit a period of real questioning and doubt, and I read this atheist blogger, and he said, if God
Now that could be true, or maybe he just heard William Lane Craig say it.
Exists, why doesn't he do something like arrange the stars to say Jesus is Lord? Or why doesn't he write on every single cell made by Yahweh? After all of our toys say made in China. And this really bothered me until I began to ask the question, is there sufficient evidence to believe in God? Has he made himself known? And as I look around, I realize that God has made himself known in the intricacy and the beauty and the vastness of creation. That's what Romans 1 tells us.
Has Jesus made himself known in the intricacies of creation? Is Jesus self-evident in the huge vastness of the universe and the design and the fine-tuning? I think this is a great question to ask Christians. Well, if they say, well, God isn't hidden, but is Jesus still hidden? More specifically, the nature of Jesus and this God?
2 tells us by our conscience we know there's a moral law, and if there's a moral law, there must be a moral lawgiver.
Ugh, if there's a moral law, there must be a moral lawgiver. Yeah, how many times have you heard that? If there's objective morality, and if it only comes from God, then of course there has to be God morals.
God has revealed himself in history through the person of Jesus, in particular the resurrection, through fulfilled prophecy, and through the church. So for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, God has actually made himself known. Now, he might not reveal himself.
Eyes to see, ears to hear. Then you can see this God. If you have those eyes and if you have those ears, then you can see and hear this God, just like every other religion can do. You notice that, Sean McDowell? Every religion can see their God and hear their God if they have eyes to see it and if they have ears to hear it. Isn't that weird how that works, Sean?
On our terms, the way we want him to. But Acts chapter 17 says that
Joy, you can do it. You can make it's almost done.
God has commissioned the time and place in which we live. But the question is, are we willing to seek after him? So rather than getting hung up on the question, why is God so hidden? Maybe we should ask the question, am I willing to seek after the evidence? And am I willing to believe in God and see the way he has actually made himself seen? And I think when we
aren't you presupposing that he exists in the first place?
Look at the question that way, we realize that God in fact has made himself known.
Well, that settles it. Okay, but this was the main one that Reed showed me today. And I don't get the sense that he's a professional apologist. He's just a Christian guy who's, maybe he is a professional apologist, I don't know. Just saying it as it is. So I think this is more authentic than William Lane Craig and Sean McDowell. No offense to, well, here we go. Why is God invisible?
Hear that God is invisible. Why is he hidden from us?
By the way, I want you to note, like Sean McDowell, I know definitely gets paid for what he does. Same with William Lane Craig. This is Matt Walsh from his channel, 2.6 thousand subscribers. Maybe he's a pastor, I don't know, but I don't get this. Listen to the difference of where he's coming from, and it seems more authentic to me, his answers, and but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's just like those other apologists.
That's a question that believers have been grappling with for millennia. It's also a question that among atheists, I think, is probably considered the number one, for many atheists, it would seem, it is considered the number one argument against the existence of God.
I can buy that. It's I don't know if it's number one, but it's pretty strong.
Because they say that, look, an all-powerful being, a being who is responsible for creating all things, who rules over all things, he would not remain invisible to us. He would reveal himself unmistakably, especially if he looks upon it and you think, well, if I were God, and I created this world of people, and I looked and I saw this world, and I saw especially that people were falling away from belief, and there was so much suffering and misery and pain and so forth. Well, then I would appear. I would make myself clear. I would say, hey, everybody, listen up. Look, here I am. Here's God. Here's what I want you to do. Here's how I want you to live. I wouldn't pass down these truths in a book.
Oh, this is so refreshing. This is so refreshing to hear a Christian say, you know what? If there's a God out there that's all powerful, all knowing, all loving, yada yada, I wouldn't pass things down in a book. I'd make it clear. I would show myself to these people, these mortals.
In an ancient book, I wouldn't trust other humans to, impart the knowledge. I would just appear and I would make it clear. I think that's kind of the atheist argument.
Oh, I thought that was more him empathizing with that view, but maybe not.
And I think even non-atheists, even believers, have had moments of wondering this. I think we all probably have. We've all grappled with this question. I know I'll admit that I've had moments in
here we go.
prayer sometimes where I say to God, God, if you would just reveal yourself to me. I mean, can you just reveal yourself? Can you come out of the shadows just for 1 second and just show me your glory?
This is great. I love this. I love here you have a Christian admitting that sometimes he's alone praying and he just asks God, please just show yourself already.
In all of its fullness, just for 1 second. That's all I'm asking for, just 1 second.
Just 1 second. Well, I would ask for at least 3.
Just 1 second. If I had just 1 second, just a blink of an eye, if I had a 1 second vision of heaven, of the supernatural realm, of the world that lies beyond this one, if I had just that 1 second, that would be enough to sustain me for the rest of my life. I could live for 100 years, for 1,000 years on just that 1 second.
And if you talk to believers who have had this type of experience, who think they have, who've had these very clear visions of God, either, I don't know if they're awake or asleep or whatever, there's like it is so powerful and so strong to them to raise doubt that what they experience actually is what they think it was is almost next to impossible.
But the vision never comes. It's never come to me. It's never come to most of us. And I think for most of us, it never will come, at least not in this life.
But some claim it has come to them. And for those who might even be listening to this, my question is, why? Why do you think Jesus came to you in a vision and not the majority of other Christians? Do you think you're special? Because I think you are. If what you're saying is true, that Jesus appeared to you in a vision or revealed himself to you in a real tangible way, and most haven't, you are special. And you must feel really good about that. Like you've experienced something that almost nobody else has ever experienced. Like, I can't imagine how good that feels.
Why? Well, I think that I'm going to offer 3 answers to to that question. And these are not, I'm not claiming that these are the three answers. I'm just saying that these are three answers. They may not even be the best answers. But as I've thought about this problem, this is what I've concluded. Why is God hidden? First answer, and the most obvious answer, is that he isn't hidden. At least not in the way and not to the extent that atheists would claim. God has revealed himself to mankind countless times through the ages. And as a Christian, I would say, of course, that that the greatest and most definitive revelation came in the person of Jesus Christ. Jesus was born, he ministered on earth, he performed miracles.
Matt, I don't know. I wonder how many people in the history of this planet have claimed to be a god, who have walked around tangible like you and me and said, I am God, or I am a god. I would say at least thousands. Do we believe all of them? Of course not. Why do you believe Jesus was any different? Well, he did miracles, Doug. How do you know? Because the book says so. Just the exact same thing you were talking about earlier.
He was crucified, he was resurrected, and then he ascended. And he was not hidden during that time. And these events themselves were not hidden. And since then, and before that, God...
Okay, so God, you're saying God is not hidden all the time, but mostly hidden.
God has revealed himself in other ways to other people. And there, again, have been countless stories of visions and supernatural events and miraculous, unexplainable healings and so forth. So all of these things, and you can choose to disbelieve these signs, and you can choose to disbelieve in God, and you can choose to disbelieve in Jesus Christ, and all of that. But if you do, you must admit that you are not disbelieving a hidden God.
Okay, I'll even grant you that, Matt. I would say I'm disbelieving a mostly hidden God, like throughout, 200,000 years of human beings being on the planet, that this God was around for 33 of those years, tangibly, out of 200,000. I'd say that's, mostly hidden.
Because that is not the God that we believe in. We believe in a God who has revealed himself repeatedly to the human race.
Repeatedly?
So we do not believe in an entirely hidden God.
I was thinking the Princess Bride movie. He's just mostly dead.
Second answer. The hiddenness of God.
Good point, Shades of Cascades. You choose to disbelieve. That's a great point of, do we choose our beliefs? I really don't think we do, but I do think we can choose to put ourselves in situations to look at the evidence, to doubt, and so forth, to raise questions. That's what I mean by doubt.
The so-called invisibility of God is somewhat of a relative thing. It's a matter of perception, you might say. Because in the Middle Ages, for instance, God was seen as this utterly self-evident truth.
In the Middle Ages, he was self-evident truth. Why do you think that is, Matt, in the Middle Ages? In fact, I would say the answer to that question is similar to the question of why do you think there's more religious people in third world countries on a relative basis? In countries where there's, let's say, less internet. Why do you think that is?
Because a man of that time would look around himself and see God revealed in pretty much everything.
Yeah, why do you think they saw God revealed in pretty much everything? Because they were ignorant. Matt, I don't know if you have kids, but if you have a 10-year-old son or daughter, your son and daughter knows probably 1,000 times more about reality than those people. Too much?
He would see the beauty of nature. He would see, he would look up at the sky and see the vastness of space. He would see the mountains and trees and oceans. He would look at his fellow man. He would look within himself and see his own self and his own mind and his moral awareness.
And they would look at lightning and thunder and hear thunder and see volcanoes and think that was God's doing as well.
And he could look at poetry and art and listen to music and on and on and on. And all of this to him was a clear indication of God's presence.
And they would be wrong, right? Maybe?
So if you had said to him, "Where is God?" he would have looked back at you and he would have said, "What do you mean, where is he? He's all around you. Look around. He's everywhere." And I think that that was the correct perspective.
You think that was the correct perspective? Do you realize that, okay, this is good. You think they said that God was all around, and you think that was the correct perspective. But keep in mind, Matt, that these people believe, probably in a lot of them at least, believe in a God that you don't believe in. A lot of these people believe in a God that you think might even be Satan, or the devil disguised as different gods, or even a version of Yahweh that you don't think is true. You think this is the correct perspective, to seek these types of gods all around them?
And when I have demanded in prayer at times in moments of weakness, when I have demanded that God reveal himself to me, I can imagine God.
It's a weakness to ask. Well, you use the word demand. I can see how that would be not good if you're a Christian, but do you think it's a weakness to politely ask your God, Yahweh, Jesus, to reveal himself to you in a real way, tangible way? Something you can touch, hear, see? You think that's a weakness?
Making the same response to me and saying, "Look around you. I have revealed myself. I'm everywhere." Third answer.
Okay, answer one was that he's not completely hidden. Second answer was that he is all around, or people of old times, maybe our perspective is wrong. I think that's similar to the first answer, but anyhow.
The last two answers were not entirely sufficient. I think they're necessary, but not sufficient.
Okay, so now we're getting to the sufficient answer.
Because the atheist will respond and say, okay, so you say that God was incarnate on earth 2,000 years ago. He revealed himself to a very small smattering of people who existed back then. And okay, so God has allegedly performed miracles and all these wondrous signs for again, a small fraction of people through the ages. And okay, so you say that the beauty of nature and all that stuff is supposed to indicate God's presence. Fine. But all of that gives rise to another question.
Why not? Why didn't he do that for me?
If God exists, and if he is willing to reveal himself through miracles and through curing the blind and through raising the dead and through even through coming here and being raised himself from the dead, then why doesn't he cut out the guesswork entirely?
Amen. Hallelujah. Why the guessing game? Great job, Matt.
Why doesn't he just appear to us in the sky as this immense, beautiful, heavenly figure and speak to us?
Actually, I'm not even asking for the sky. You see this? I have a chair next to me all the time in case Jesus wants to join my live stream.
All of us, and say, "Hi, I'm God. Here's what I need you to do. Here's the meaning of life. Here are the things that you need to, here's how you need to live. Let me lay it out for you." He could make himself unmistakably, unavoidably, absolutely evident to everyone on earth. But the fact is that he hasn't. Why?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Now, I think that's a reasonable objection. Because
he's like,
it's true that even though he's revealed himself to us, as a Christian, we must admit,
just give me the answer,
that he has chosen to reveal himself in a way that still allows us to deny his existence. He seems to throw out these breadcrumbs, but he leaves room, and probably a lot of room, to ignore those crumbs and even to ignore him and his very existence.
So you believe in the God of breadcrumbs to reveal his existence. There's clues, there's hints, there's a trail that leads to him, but you don't get to see him.
He could appear to us in the sky. He could do that. He could appear to each of us individually at the same time. He could appear right before you in your home. I mean, he could force you to believe. He
Okay.
absolutely could. I know there are people who would argue, well, yeah, but even if God appeared in the sky, I mean, atheists would still find some other explanation for it. And maybe a few of them would. I mean, the most deluded, but I think almost everybody would come to believe in God.
And I appreciate you, Matt, saying that. That's a great observation. I think that if God were to do the things that you described, most people would believe.
If he were to appear in the sky and speak to us, right? And he could reveal himself in a way individually to all of us where everybody in the world would believe. He could force that upon us.
But why doesn't he?
He could. So if the whole point is to believe and nothing more, then he could force that.
But belief is a good first step. The belief in his existence is a good step. Don't you? First step.
And in fact, one day he will force the issue, one way or another. One day we are all going to believe in God. One day.
How do you know that?
Nobody in the afterlife, no matter where they are, heaven or hell, none of them are atheists.
How do you know that?
Because when you stand before God in judgment, there's not going to be any disbelieving.
How do you know that?
There's not going to be any way around it. So why don't we get that sign now? I think it's because believing in God's existence is not the point in and of itself.
It's not the point. Well, what is the point?
The point is to love God.
Oh. When you say love, I'm assuming you mean something deep and meaningful and precious. How deep and meaningful and precious can the love be of something that you don't believe exists? Like I can sort of love a character in Harry Potter, but it's not, I don't think, the type of love you're thinking of. So I'm back to, isn't a good first step believing that this God even exists in some way?
Love is the point. To love God and to desire him alone. That's the point of existence.
Okay, I can grant you all that. If that's the point, is to love God, isn't the first step to believe he exists first?
If the only point were simply just to believe in God's existence, well, then this existence that we have now, separated from God and where God is invisible, seems like a cruel joke. It seems like this weird game.
Oh, yes, you're exactly right. The way you phrased it, it does seem like a cruel joke. Like, it does seem like a weird game.
From God and where God is invisible seems like a cruel joke. It seems like this weird game of like hide and seek that God is playing with us, where he sends us off to some abandoned corner of the universe and then hides off somewhere on some...
Whoa, what's that tattoo?
Sends us off to some abandoned corner of the universe and then hides off
PX? Anybody know what that is?
somewhere on some other corner and says, come and find me. And the whole point of life is just to, believe and nothing more. But that's not the point of life. The point is to love God.
The point of life is to love God? But again, don't you have to first believe that God exists?
And to desire him. And I would submit that for most of us, right now on earth, a miraculous revelation would hinder us. It would prevent us from loving him.
Oh, brother. A miraculous revelation would prevent us from loving him. Are you saying that none of the gospel writers loved him? I'm sure he believes the gospel writers actually saw Jesus, at least two of them. Are you saying Paul didn't really love Jesus? Are you saying Moses, which I don't believe existed, or Abraham, who I don't believe existed, didn't really love God? Are you saying Adam and Eve, all the characters in the Old Testament and New Testament who communed with God directly, are you saying they really didn't love God? Or that they were prevented from really loving him?
It may force us to believe, but it would prevent us from loving him. If he were to appear in the clouds before all of us right now, we would all believe, but we would not all love.
I buy that. I agree with you there. We would all believe, but we would not all love. But I think you still need to believe that he exists first before you even have a chance of loving.
And there are even some of us who maybe could have come to love him, but now would not, because he has appeared. Let me explain what I mean by that.
You know what would be funny is if a God does exist and he comes down to planet Earth and just looks at guys like Matt and says, "Hey, Matt, you screwed up the Bible. That's not my doing at all. This Jesus guy, no, he wasn't me in flesh."
And I will use again, as I've used many times, the analogy of marriage. And I do think this is the best analogy that we have available to us to explain
Okay, I'm married, so maybe I will start to understand this now.
our relationship with God. And it is the analogy that God the Father and God the Son both make repeatedly in Scripture. So I'm pretty confident in the analogy because it's the one that God himself relies upon. So think about it. If you're a man,
I'm a man.
think about when you first met the woman who would be your wife.
Okay, got it.
Think about that moment when you first met your wife. And you
Yep.
saw her, and she was beautiful, and she was full of life and energy, and you were captivated, you were enchanted, you were infatuated, right?
Yep.
Now, oftentimes we'll call this falling in love. And there are people who will say, I fell in love with my wife.
Yeah, I didn't say that, Matt. That was falling in lust.
It was love at first sight. I fell in love instantly. But really, and when you get married and you've been married a while, and you have
25 years, Matt, to carry the one to out. In 13 days, Matt Walsh, 25 years. How long have you been married?
a little bit maturity, and you start to understand, you realize that wasn't love at all. You didn't love your wife the moment that you saw her. It was not love at first sight. You didn't fall in love with her a second after laying your eyes on her. You couldn't. You didn't know her. You had almost nothing to go on besides her looks, which was really, if we're being honest, the main thing. I mean, in the first few seconds of meeting her, in the first few moments, in the first few days, probably in the first few months, one of the primary things attracting you to her was...
You're right, Matt. You're right. You're absolutely right. I did not love my back then girlfriend, now wife. But I did have something to go on in order to love her later and to be married almost 25 years. And that is, I was convinced she existed.
That she was beautiful. And you had a pretty surface level understanding of her personality as well. But that's it. That's all you had. You had her looks, and you had what you knew of her personality, which was not much because you didn't know her that well. So no, this wasn't love.
I agree.
This couldn't be love.
I agree.
It was captivation, it was infatuation, it was preoccupation, maybe it was even obsession.
But I still knew she existed.
It was an entirely emotional experience. In order for true love to develop and for a lasting marriage to be formed, these initial fireworks, this emotional experience, these emotional hysterics have to cool down. And we'll often call this we'll say, well, the in love phase is ending. But actually, the opposite is true. It's such a stupid way of looking at it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. You got to get those hormones cool down in order to really start to commit, be patient, be kind. In fact, I think true love starts when you have your first argument and you see each other at the worst, and you commit to each other to walk through those times together.
When that infatuation starts to cool in a marriage, we say, "Oh, well, the in love phase is." No, the exact opposite.
Joe, hi Doug. Want me to come on live afterwards? Yeah. Write this down. appear.in/PineCreek, one word. I want to get the punchline here, so yeah, get ready, Joe, and you can hop on, and we can talk.
Opposite is true. Now. Here's the part where it is.
I'll play another minute because I want to see where he's going. I think I know where he's going here. He's going that if we were to see God, if we were to see Jesus in the flesh, tangible, or in the sky, we would become infatuated with him, and that would prevent us from really loving him. That's where he's going with this. But I would say if that was true, then no one in my shoes, who's been married almost 25 years, would truly love, because I was at one point infatuated, and that turned into love, and my wife and I have been together for a long time. But maybe he's going to say that because God is so beautiful, he would be like that, like a 12 out of 10 drop dead gorgeous type of God, that infatuation would never go away. That's probably where he's going with this.
It is actually possible to be in love. The state of being really in love begins when that initial phase ends. So it's precisely when infatuation, emotion, and sexual attraction are no longer the number one driving forces in your relationship. Not to say that they're gone, but when they are the driving forces, well, then you cannot really be in love, because that's not love. It's when those things kind of take a backseat to something else, when something deeper, something calmer, something more real becomes the bond that ties you together at that moment. That's when you can really love.
This is actually pretty unique. I'm not going to say it's good. I don't think I've ever heard this sort of line of reasoning before, that God has hidden himself on purpose, because if he didn't, we couldn't truly love him. But here's, I guess, one thing for you to think about, Matt, and that is, do you think you will really love God in heaven? Because if heaven is being in the presence of God for eternity, in all his glory, are you saying that you won't be able to truly love him then? If that's the analogy you're making, that God has to stay a little bit hidden in order for you to really get to know him and love him, is he going to still be hidden in heaven a little bit, so you're not just overcome by this infatuation for him? I think this is the downfall, Matt, of your reasoning. But none of this really matters, because in order to even get to the stage where you even have a chance to love this God, you first have to be convinced that he exists. Do you not? Okay, Joe DePlato, let me see if you're in my appear here. And if anybody else jumps in, I can kick you out. So I'm there, you think? Okay.
Matters, because in order to even get to this...
yes, yeah. So mute that. Let me put you in. Welcome.
Oh, hey, am I on? I was watching the stream.
I'm putting you on now.
Awesome. How's it going, Doug?
I'd say about an 8.
An 8? An 8 out of 10?
Yeah. Let me see.
Not out of 100, right? That would be not so good.
Let me do that. I'm doing this for the autistic atheists in the chat. They need everything lined up. Okay, so
I'm the same. It's got to be nice and lined up. I'll go crazy.
So this is Joe De Pilato. We've talked once before, right? Privately.
Yeah, it was just saying hi to you and saying, I really enjoy your channel and cool conversations, right? I mean, these are the deep questions. Not a lot of people have these questions and are able to not let your ego get too far into it where you start name calling and stuff. So,
well,
kudos for that.
Well, thank you, Joe. This is your show now. What do you want to talk to me about?
Oh, well, I didn't bring an agenda, but it's
that's all right. I never have an agenda when I start. Well, I have an agenda, but nothing scripted. At least not.
I'd also be glad if I'm online and you're watching something, I can be another voice to respond, and so it's not just you talking to the video.
Well, what did you think about what I showed? Do you think the God you worship and serve is relatively hidden, fully hidden? Yeah. Does it bother you?
So it's an interesting question. Something I haven't really had a whole lot of time to think about. Right. So for chat, I do believe in God, and I think a lot of my beliefs are. Where you take a look at all the different Christian beliefs out there, I'm still trying to explore, right, who is this? What is God? What is the nature of God? Is it completely different than what your mainstream American culture thinks of when they think of God? Is it, what is the reality here? I'm here for the same reason that you're here, Doug, right? I'm interested in what truth is, and more so, I'm interested in how should I live my life? How should you live your life, Doug? What are the important things? So as far as answering your question, the hiddenness of God.
Like, do you wish you could see him?
Do I wish I could see God? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be cool. Who wouldn't, right?
Do you think you would?
Would you want to see God?
Definitely. Do you think? Do you have doubts because you can't see him?
So I think, right, if we're actually just trying to figure out what truth is and what reality is, we probably want to start breaking down the questions. So start with the facts. Start with the things that we just know, right?
Well, the question I asked you was do you question this God's existence ever because you can't see him?
No, I mean I guess it's something that may be confusing, or it's something to think about, something to ponder. I wouldn't say it's something that is a vector of causing doubt per se. It's more just, well, it's a fact that I'm not physically, observing a God. And you say, okay, what does that mean? Right. And if you're going to come to some sort of logical conclusion, you say, okay, the fact is either there is a God or there's not a God. And if there is a God, and if I don't see him, what are the possible logical conclusions?
But like the guy on the video, he said that in times of, how did he put it, times of weakness or something like that, he's demanded of God that he could see him just for a second. Like, have you ever prayed something like that where God, just show me you're real for a couple seconds? Have you ever done something like that?
So, no. It's not actually, it's not a big deal, and it's not part of an expectation either. For me, my beliefs and my understanding of who God is and what he is completely evident through things that are beyond like a physical observation.
How can something be completely? How can something be completely evident to you about, let's say, how can God be completely evident to you on the basis of something unseen?
Right. Well, you take obvious examples of things that you can feel but can't see, right? Okay, that's just you don't need to see something to understand or to recognize it, right? That's not the point, and I didn't really answer the question. And part of it is, how do you define God, and how do we understand God, and what is this God that I say is evident to me, and what is the definition that I say I experience, and I say that I believe in when I talk about God? And for me, the evidences, at least the evidences I see in my life, are changes of heart and changes of attitude. There's a fly.
It's God.
Did you see him on the screen? There,
yeah,
your prayers have been answered. Pray for him to come back.
So just to I know where you're coming from, just in case people in the chat don't know. You're a Protestant Christian, correct?
Yes.
You believe Jesus,
somewhere in that category.
You believe in the God of the Bible. You believe Jesus Christ is God. You believe Jesus Christ rose from the dead for your sins. You're the basic Protestant Christian. No offense. No offense to the way I put it that way.
Yeah, I'd say I probably disagree with 25 to 30% of what Protestant Christians would generally say are true. Okay. So,
well, we have something in common. I'm
there you go.
I'm more than 25%, but so as concisely as you can you tell me what is the primary main reason you believe this God exists?
So for me, the primary reason that I believe in God is my life right now, and my motives, and the way that my life has changed, and how I've seen love change my life. I've seen love change other people's lives.
Okay,
and it's something that I know to be good.
Can I stop you there?
So I guess anything I'm going to describe is going to be more describing how it's more going to be just describing the goodness of some sort of objective morality of love, if you will. Not of a good way to describe it, evidence of a specific God of the Bible.
Okay. I usually don't do this, but I'm feeling led. I'm feeling led by the Spirit here. When I asked you what's the primary reason you believe that this God exists, you said the way He's changed your life. Correct?
The way my life has been changed. Yes.
Okay.
And I guess I'd say there's consistencies in the way that I attribute it to. There's a fly. You prayed for the fly to come back. Consistencies with the Bible versus the things that are just apparent based on something I'd say is within each of us as far as our conscious, and things that we're drawn to understand, and things that we're drawn as a culture, as human.
Can we focus on one thing at a time? Because I actually think that what you said is actually very important, and a very powerful reason that I've heard many people say. And since Reed Nice Wonders in the chat, I'm going to ask this on his behalf. And if he was here, he would ask you, how confident are you that the God you believe in exists based on the fact that He's changed your life, or that your life has been changed?
How confident am I in the specific God?
Yeah.
So I guess it's not as much of an action reaction as far as
Like, are you very confident that the God you believe in, that you believe exists? Are you very, very confident that because your life has changed that this God exists? Are you somewhat confident, medium, not very confident, barely confident? Like, or if you want to use a number, I'm asking this for Reed, because I would never ask this type of question, but he would.
For Reed, I'd say it's a medium high confidence for that single reason.
Okay.
So I guess a couple of, and I don't know. I'm not reading the chat, so sorry, I can't. Not responding to you.
Don't worry, but if anything important comes in the chat, I'll let you know. But I guess what Reed would say is, okay, if you're medium confident that this specific God that you believe exists, the reason why you believe this specific God exists is because of your changed life. If there are many people in this world who's had their life changed, radically changed, and believe in a different God, specific God than you do, would that lower your confidence with that knowledge that this specific God exists?
So that's actually it's an interesting question. And this is probably one of the parts that I would have that your mainline Protestants may have a different answer for. Are you familiar with? I'm trying to remember what the correct theological term is. Well, the basic idea is having a very specific knowledge-based understanding of the God that's described in the Old Testament is not explicitly required in order to actually be following that God. Right? If you've never heard the name of Jesus, that's okay.
Well, let's.
Right.
Yeah. You know what?
And if you hear, so let's say there's some religion which is all about, right, the core philosophy, the core belief, the core motive, the core kind of driving force behind the belief is to, I don't know, live for yourself, increase your joy, and kill everyone else who doesn't. I don't know. Can I come up to it?
Can I rephrase my question? I think this might help the conversation. You said you believe that the specific God exists because of your changed life. Let's get rid of the word specific. Let's just replace it with any God. Do you believe in the existence of any God because of your changed life? And if that's the case, would it lower your confidence to know that many people's lives have been changed that believe in a variety of gods, that they attribute it to a variety of gods? Does that knowledge have any impact on you?
I think it's different, and I think it's an individual thing, right? Because many people's lives have changed for various reasons. I think a lot of people's lives have changed for Christianity, and they think it's great, but it's actually not. Or maybe it's a temporary, hey, I have this good feeling type of thing, or here's something great that's happened to me, and you attribute that to whatever belief system you currently have. But as far as a change of heart, a change of understanding, I think in the end, what you have is you have a.
Okay, I'm gonna role play for like 10 seconds here.
All right. Should I role play too?
I'm a Hindu. I'm a Hindu now. Joe, I used to do acid. I was hooked on acid, man. The stories I could tell. But Vishnu, I prayed to Vishnu, and he totally radically changed my life. And now I'm drug free. My whole life's changed. I'm a better person now, productive member of society. And this is why I'm confident. I'm medium confident that Vishnu exists and is real. Do you think that's a good reason to be medium confident?
So if we're going to continue to role play, can I ask what's your name? Is your name still Doug, Vishnu worshiper?
Yes.
So Doug too. So your life has been changed, and so how are you a different person?
Oh, I used to be a drug addict, and now I'm not.
Well, why does that matter?
Oh, because I was hurting myself and the others around me that I love.
Okay, so you've changed to being a person who cares deeply about other people.
So I am medium confident that Vishnu exists and is real and changed my life. Do you think that's a good reason that I should believe Vishnu is real?
So I think there comes a point where if the transformation, the beliefs, and the change of heart becomes to be in a way that is actually in line with the God of the Bible, right? If it's consistent with the understanding of the beliefs and the core of what you always say, or what I would say the nature of God is, no matter what you call him Vishnu. But if we're transforming Vishnu into Yahweh,
No.
then it doesn't matter.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Right?
You've transformed Yahweh into my God, Vishnu.
It doesn't matter. If that's
It doesn't.
If we're describing the same idea, it doesn't matter what we call him, right?
So all gods are the same God?
If the heart is the same, I think if the person is changed and the heart is the same.
No, but Yahweh is a terrible God. That God never existed. Let's be real. But Vishnu is real. And I know he's real. I am medium confident that he's real because he totally changed my life and I no longer am hooked on acid. Is that a good reason, in your opinion, that I should be medium confident that Vishnu exists? Because my life has been changed?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and Vishnu existed long before Yahweh. Hinduism is older than Judaism. Would you say I have a good reason to be confident that Vishnu exists based on my changed life?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a way to phrase it.
I would say no. Is that a good way to phrase it?
Yeah. So no, I'm not trying to answer. I'm also trying to progress the conversation. Yeah.
Well, I think here's one way you could answer it. No, I don't think that's a good reason to be that confident that Vishnu exists based on your changed life, because many people in this world changed their lives radically. There's so many different people in different religions who've got off addictions through the belief in Vishnu or Allah or Yahweh or Jesus or Zeus or Thor or Odin. But that doesn't mean they exist. That has no bearing on whether it exists. It's, maybe it was just the belief that exists is what did it. So that's one way you could answer. Do you agree with that answer?
Yeah. So that's a decent answer.
Would you accept that answer for yourself?
In some ways yes, and in some ways no. So I think there's a lot of contributing factors.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take that in some ways, yes. Let's do 3 of these. So that was number 1. Give me another reason why you believe Yahweh or Jesus exists.
So one of the things that I've been just trying to take worldviews and trying to understand other people's worldviews and trying to just starting from the ground up. So if I can just actually change the conversation, something I'd like to ask you. Just something I haven't done any Wikipediaing or Googling, so maybe there's already an answer out there. Maybe I'll look dumb, but that's okay.
Ask away.
Because I'll just have a conversation. So if we just start from what we do know, I'm just interested in, right? If we just take our whole worldviews and let's just throw it away for a second.
Okay.
And we'll just pop into existence, and we know I'll just say 2 things, right? We know that there's stuff in the world, there's stuff out there, and that I'm experiencing the stuff.
Yep.
All right. So just starting with the second, I'm experiencing stuff. how can that be explained?
Good question. Why is there something rather than nothing? Is that the question?
No. That's the first question. So actually, reversing it, why am I experiencing stuff? I guess another way is kind of think of a thought experiment. How do I know that I'm not the only person who's conscious and everyone else is a robot? Everyone else is. How do I know that's not the case? And how come I'm not a robot? If you understand just an automaton chemical reaction.
Yeah.
Why is there?
It could be true that you're the only mind in the world and I'm a robot, or you're a robot. It could be true that we live in the Matrix and everything, that nothing has existed until this exact moment, and everything has just been, all our thoughts and memories have been implanted in our brain. But we don't go through our lives thinking like this.
No. I think you're missing the point. So
you're asking the basis of knowledge, I think.
The basis of consciousness.
Okay, you're asking the basis of consciousness. Why is there consciousness?
Why? How? It's more of a question. Can there be a natural explanation for
an
experiencer?
Okay.
Right. I work with computers. Where I know a lot about neural networks. There's no way you could possibly even come up with a conclusion that out of complex order we would have something like an idea of consciousness. And I'm just curious, right? What do you do with that?
Well, first of all, I don't even know what you mean by consciousness. That's a.
Are you experiencing sitting in the chair?
Yeah, if experiences and so forth, if that's strictly what you mean, I think that we evolved as primates for 400,000 years, roughly, or between 200,000 and 400,000 years. We have a very complex brain, and when it functions, this is what we call that word consciousness. I do believe.
So I can build a supercomputer.
Yeah,
It's never going to become conscious in the same way that you or I are conscious, right?
We don't know that.
Or do you think it can? Maybe you think it can.
Yeah, someday maybe. Yeah. Have you watched the show Westworld?
Do you think that's, well? One could say, right? You could have an indistinguishable automaton from a human.
Yep.
But the difference is one is actually experiencing things and one's not.
Well,
so why would one need to experience? Why are you, Doug? Let's say somebody else popped into your body with your same imagination, your same memories, but it wasn't you. How is that different?
It isn't.
But you would no longer be experiencing it.
I wouldn't exist.
It would be
then.
someone else.
Yeah, it'd be someone else.
So the you as you know, as far as the experiencer, pops out of existence. Another person, if you will, takes over your brain. Or you're just kind of using abstract concepts, right? And now someone else is experiencing through Doug's body, has the same memories, has the same, same behavior, same beliefs. But you, the Doug you were, ceases to exist and is somebody else. Why is that different?
It isn't.
Why is there consciousness? Why are you actually experiencing something? And can there actually be something in the chemistry of it all that can have any sort of explanation to what it is that you and I are, and everybody in chat, are actually doing right now? Like, can there be, and can you think of even a reasonable explanation for how this actually can be?
I don't know.
Can you think of like a reasonable, if this is like the first thing, right? You know nothing except that you're here. Is prime supposition?
Hey, Joe, I got your question.
No, so this is a big, right? I think this is
Joe,
real.
Joe, I understand what you're saying. We don't have. I hear you.
Sorry.
I understand you. your question is getting at, I think one of the reasons you believe in God is because you can't explain certain things. And I can't explain certain things either.
Yeah, so that's, no, that
Okay, if
you can you think of an idea? I can say I can't explain something, therefore it must be something else. I'm just saying, I'm asking you, can I reasonably believe that there's a natural explanation for consciousness versus something that's beyond natural? Is that worth believing based on what I know, based on what I'm experiencing?
Okay, slow down, Joe.
Is it a reasonable assumption? Yep.
Slow down. I think I was right the first time that this is a question of, I don't know the answer, therefore God. Because you said, is there a reasonable explanation?
No, I never said the word God.
You said
I
natural.
never once said the word God.
I know, but you said, is there a naturalistic explanation for this? Or use the word natural, which implies that there could be a supernatural explanation for it.
Yes, absolutely.
And you know what, Joe? Stop there, Joe. I agree with you. There could be.
Good. No, I think that's a good. So that's where I'm starting, right?
And there'd be
I
ways.
don't know.
There would be ways to test this as well, I think.
I don't think so.
Well, let's think about this.
Maybe where I disagree.
Let's say consciousness cannot be explained by natural phenomena alone. Could we test this? I think someday we could. You know how? Let's say 500 years from now, we have the technology to bring people back to life with like 99.99999 effectiveness. So they kill me, a version of me, 500 years from now. And I'm dead for a full week, but I'm not scared because I'll come back. Well, they know how to revive me even a week later. Now they can run experiments. And they can say, okay, Doug, we're going to kill you. And if you, the essence of Doug, is really more than just matter, then maybe you'll be able to read that random number generator at the top of the shelf in this room. Maybe you'll be able to do certain things and come back with verifiable results that we can repeat.
Yeah, if there's a very specific truth about consciousness and whatever you're describing was like an out-of-body experience, then that could be testable. But I would argue that if you were to do that, any answer that you were to give would be indistinguishable from that which would be a sophisticated robotic, if you will, a sophisticated biological computer.
No, I'm dead.
It would be indistinguishable from the scientist.
Whatever you call it,
you can
is
answer.
dead.
You can make whatever you want. Right? You're talking about, right? You're going to prove something that could be unknowable otherwise.
Yeah. So let's say there's a random number generator of.
So you're saying if there was like the possibility for an out-of-body experience, and you could see something that you wouldn't be able to know otherwise?
Yeah. If consciousness is not just material, and if you kill the material and the consciousness still lives, then we can Then we could possibly verify it.
If all of those assumptions were true, that we could coming back from the dead, and while we were dead, we'd have an out-of-body experience and be able to come back to the animated body, and we can actually know for sure it was the same person. And when we were dead, we'd actually experience things while we were dead. Then yes, we could possibly test that.
Okay, and so
I don't think that's reasonable.
Why not? Why is that not reasonable?
Well, I think it's not reasonable to assume all of those things are actually true today.
Well, I said 500 years from now. We don't have the technology today,
we could test it.
Yeah, maybe in the future.
What I'd guess is we would test it, and you would find all the evidence that supports that you don't have any additional information, that you don't see this random number generator. So you wouldn't actually be able to, you wouldn't know whether or not consciousness
Well, do you think consciousness? Do you think consciousness outside a body can actually do anything, or think anything?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either.
What do you?
But I'm just proposing a test that would change my mind. What would change your mind? What is there anything that would change your mind that consciousness is basically of 100% function of the material and nothing else?
Well, I mean, if you wanted to convince me that consciousness was natural, I would like to hear a reasonable explanation. Like I would totally be all over that. Like if you could come up with.
Well, let's start with what we do know.
Even a guess. Like, well, if the atoms and the quantum particles, they interact in such a way that it create it. I can't right now. I'm having trouble coming up with even a made up sciencey idea that could even start to explain.
Have you researched any of it?
What's that?
Have you done any personal research on possible explanations of how consciousness?
Yeah. So I have, and there's nothing good. It's basically an I don't know at best.
Is that bad?
There's an interesting TED talk, and it was one of the most disappointing TED talks. Maybe Google it, or maybe someone in chat will Google it. But it's basically after things become super complex, then this idea of consciousness can happen. I think he was talking about like swarms of fishes and like, it becomes something else when it becomes more complex, and trying to attribute that somehow to consciousness, which is you're grasping at straws at that point.
Like,
right?
Is a chimpanzee conscious?
Oh, I don't know. I never asked.
Are you conscious?
I am. Are you conscious?
Yeah, I believe I am, but I also believe a chimpanzee is as well. But you're not sure?
Oh, I said I don't know. I believe it is.
You believe it is as well. Okay. How about a dog?
Yeah. Yep.
How about a rat?
I believe that. Yep. I believe a rat. I believe to some extent. I guess I'm not sure at what point in time a brain is so underdeveloped that it can no longer that is no longer conscious.
So a brain and consciousness are linked then.
Within bodies, I would guess so. We could think about it, but
because you made the comment that you don't know how underdeveloped the brain would have to be before you lose consciousness.
But before it would be unable to experience consciousness in a natural body, right?
Does a rock have consciousness?
I don't think so. Do you think a rock has consciousness? I don't think so either.
But I'm asking you these really, I guess, simple questions because I'm getting to the things we agree on. That it seems to both of us, I think, that the brain is involved somehow. And
as far as we can guess, and really the only thing that I can actually believe, prove is I know that I'm conscious. I don't know you're conscious. I don't know if a chimpanzee is conscious. I can guess based on the evidence, what I also believe in my worldview. Like if I believe that I'm nearly the same as a chimpanzee, or if I have a whole bunch in common, then I would reasonably say, yep. If there's actually very little between biological creatures,
do you think?
Why wouldn't?
Like consciousness.
But the other question is, well, if there's something supernatural, then how can I even start to? We start making assumptions, okay, about how the supernatural must work, and either I'm guessing that I'm the same or I'm different, but I don't know. You have to make an assumption. Either I believe.
What's
that?
You watched my split brain video I played the other day, right?
Split frame. Doesn't ring a bell.
Split brain video. A couple days ago, or was it yesterday? I played a video where a person, corpus callosum, was cut, and you know how the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body and vice versa. And they would ask people questions, and just you would use different fingers to answer. So if the left finger is being asked or answers a question, the question was asked to the right side of the brain because the corpus callosum has been cut. And in the video, it was very interesting because they asked the participant, "Do you believe in God?" And the left side said no, and the right side said yes. So here we have a conscious being answering a question of belief on a deity differently, depending on what side of the brain. So I'm trying to tie in consciousness here with this whole idea of God.
That's relatable. These are just one of the things that it's fun to think about. Well, what is this conscious thing? I know I'm experiencing this, like, but when you're 2-year-old, this is like all that you know, right? I just know that I'm me.
But is the fact that you find no good reason, and I would tend to agree with you, consciousness is something very difficult to understand, but it is the fact that there's no good explanation in your mind for consciousness, is this have anything to do with the reason why you believe a God exists?
So I guess it's a reason why it's difficult. It's a reason why I believe in the supernatural. It's a reason why I wouldn't take the axiom that everything that is true can be described through the natural. So I would say I'm not a pure naturalist.
Okay.
I think if you are, you'd have to make an assumption, right? You're taking assumptions. So I'd say that's one thing that would cause me to.
Why do you think I wouldn't say that though? Like, why do you think you and I are so different that?
I didn't say that. It's just something that's interesting. It's just something that's interesting to think about.
No.
Maybe some people in chat haven't thought about it, but it's just.
Well, let me.
It's just starting.
Let me ask you directly again. Is the unanswered questions of consciousness a reason you believe in the supernatural?
It's a contributing reason. Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, that's not a reason for me. Now, my question for you is, why do you think that's the case? Why do you think unanswered questions about consciousness does not make me believe or doesn't lead me to believe in the supernatural? Why do you think that's not the case for me?
For you, I can explain why it's the case for me. I mean, maybe
No, I'm asking you to guess. I'm asking you to predict what I'm about to say. I'll tell you no matter what. But what do you predict?
I guess that you say that just because you don't have the answer, you still think that there can be you think that there may be a way that you could get an answer in the future.
Yeah, I would say.
And just because we don't know today doesn't mean we can't know tomorrow.
Exactly, and
that's what I would guess you would say. And
yeah,
that's
pretty good.
That's not a very appealing. So let me
wait. Hang on. You were about to say that's not very appealing to you. Sorry, that's a poor word choice. But you were kind of riffing there, and I think that was the real answer. What was going on in your brain? Why do you think that unanswered question, or waiting to find out the answer instead of coming up with a possible answer of the supernatural? Like, why not just say, I don't know?
You think the supernatural is an answer?
Is it an answer for you?
It's just as much as saying I don't know as I think you're saying.
Oh, so you don't. So
I'm not. I don't think it describes the quality of what the supernatural is. Just that.
Okay. I'm not saying that, but just the existence of a supernatural consciousness does that for you. Not being able to explain consciousness leads you to believe in the supernatural, correct?
I think it's more probable that there's something beyond, something else other than the pure natural world. I think it's more probable that there's more than just the natural world.
Why?
Because based on the fact that if you take the axiom that there is just the natural world, that it
No, I'm asking why is it more probable? I agree it could be possible, but I'm asking you why in your mind is it more probable that there's a supernatural?
I think there exists a burden of something that there's no reasonable explanation if one was to take the natural world, right? The supernatural, it's the same thing, except the having to stay consistent within the laws of nature do not have to follow. So and I can see why that's not an appealing view for you. But it has to start from an assumption. Either there is only the natural world or there's not the natural world. So if taking the assumption that there is a natural world and something there's no way you can, it doesn't squeeze, right? It doesn't jive. And I could say, I don't know why, but I think it'll happen in the future. But you'll never know in your life. I'm sure that you'll die not having an answer to this question. It's never going to squeeze in. And you're going to say, well, I believe that it can be known, but that's something that you believe. And I say, I think it's actually not, and I don't know, I don't have any proof that it actually can't squeeze into naturalism.
But I'm totally okay
I can't
dying
explain how it works.
I'm totally okay dying with the lack of knowledge of explanation of consciousness. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But the reason why I am less apt to say, well, it's more probable supernatural exists, is because throughout all of history, we have so many examples where schmuck humans like us have said, oh, I can't explain that, so there must be a supernatural or a God. All the way from disease and epilepsy and tornadoes and hurricanes and lightning and thunder. It's like
right. So you're trying to use, well, be careful about trying to attribute something to that's different. So what?
Didn't people used to say that there must be a supernatural because of lightning? Didn't people used to say there must be supernatural because of thunder?
Did.
Yeah.
And you see that's the same thing, and that's fine.
No, I admit consciousness is more complicated than lightning, but it's in the same. I would say it's in the same category.
But you believe that just as something else has been explained, that this can also be explained.
Potentially, yeah, but I could be wrong about that.
Right. Well, I think this is the point where you just have to say, here's my starting point of belief, and I'm just gonna let that worldview develop. And I think if you continue in that, right, that's fine.
If consciousness was explained on a completely naturalistic level, would you still believe in a supernatural?
I don't know.
Think about it and let me know.
Well, I'll just say just for fun, no. But if consciousness could be explained through the natural, I would say no. I wouldn't believe in the supernatural.
So you wouldn't believe in Jesus or God or anything if consciousness could be explained on the completely naturalistic level. You would stop believing in God.
Very possibly. I mean, it's hard to know, but I'd say very possibly if that could be proven.
Okay, I can appreciate that. Like that's the whole purpose of my channel, is to have markers that would change one's mind. And I gave you a marker that would change my mind on the opposite side. Like if we did those tests that I was describing earlier. Now I would still say that now consciousness is immaterial, because now we've demonstrated over and over again that it is completely independent of the brain, and there's something other than a material explanation. So I guess that would force me into the more of a supernatural, whatever that means. But anyhow, yeah, so we both have markers that would change your mind, and that's great.
Yeah. So the other marker, which I know you've talked more about, is first cause. And that's something it's really intriguing and just fun to think about. And I think it falls in the same ballpark of you start with an initial assumption.
But I really want to get to what's really important to you, because you mentioned the first thing you mentioned was the changed life, And then when we talked about, well, maybe that's not a good reason, we went to consciousness, and now we have markers that would change both our minds. Is there a third thing? Is it first cause, or is there something else?
Oh, well. Like that's what I just said. So it's what's on my mind. So sure.
But because I know
I don't have a list, but yeah. That's I'd say that's in the same ballpark as consciousness as far as is there a rational natural explanation? I'd be up to talking about it and thinking about that. I'm very happy not having the answers to things. But if I think something cannot be answered, then I think you want to choose, okay, I think it cannot be answered, or I think it can be answered and it hasn't been answered, or two very different things. And you have to choose which one of those you actually think it is. If I think it can't be answered by this.
Why do you have to choose before you even look into it?
What's that?
Why do you have to choose? Like, I do admit that.
Well, I mean, it's going to be one of the basic. I mean, you're going to be assuming one or the other, or just say, I haven't thought about it. I'm not thinking. That's possible too, if you've never thought about it.
I think you should still always be curious and still investigate, but.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, do you believe that it's possible or probable that matter has existed eternally?
Do I think it's probable that matter has existed for eternity?
Yeah, going back.
I think that's improbable.
Okay.
What do you think it's? Do you think it's more or less probable that matters existed for eternity?
Well, like, do you think there was something before the Big Bang, before the singularity, that was material?
I'm not sure.
I'm not either.
There could have been.
Yeah.
There very well could have been.
And
I don't pretend to know for sure.
When I say the word universe, what do you think of?
I think of just any physical, anything, space-time, generally.
Do you think there could be a universe with a different space-time than ours that coexists with us? Whatever that means.
Like the Marvel multiverse.
Yeah.
It's real. Yeah. Do I think that's possible?
Yeah.
I guess it's in the same realm as the Matrix for me. I don't have any reason why I would want to believe it unless it supports another belief. Like if it's required to believe something else, then you can say, okay, well maybe then the Matrix has to be real for that to support another belief of mine. But I don't have any good reason to believe in a multiverse.
Well, do we know what caused the Big Bang?
I don't think so. Do you know?
No. So you wouldn't say your God did it then?
I guess it depends on your definition of God doing it.
Or a supernatural realm.
What's that?
Or a supernatural realm. When I asked you, do you know what caused the Big Bang? And I think you said no. So are you including a supernatural realm in that no answer?
Yeah. So I don't know. For all I know, there could be an infinite universe before the Big Bang, and there's been a supernatural behind all of that. Could be.
Okay. So then, what does the first cause have anything to do with believing in a supernatural? Then, if you
well, it has. It's about behind the scenes, right?
Because you're starting to sound more and more like me, and I'm an agnostic atheist.
So, right.
Careful.
I don't know. I've been watching your channel too much, Doug. So, the reason I have trouble believing that the universe has a purely naturalistic explanation is due to logical consistencies. And if it's going to follow the same laws of logic, that I know today, 1 + 1 = 2, 0 is not equal to 1. If those are impossible to break, regardless of natural world, if laws of logic are impossible to break, then I have trouble finding a rational explanation for the beginning of the natural world.
Okay, now I want you to take note what's happening here. You use the words, I can't think of a rational explanation. We're back to consciousness. It's the same argument. It's like I don't have an answer.
I said it's basically the same. It's basically the same, right? It's either you have to take an initial assumption that everything is natural, or that there's both the natural and supernatural. And I think the supernatural is maybe not as crazy as you think. And I'd say the supernatural is not as unlikely as you think. And to assume that it is kind of taking some liberties with your assumptions, where maybe you don't have any real reasons why do you reject the supernatural, and why? I guess I would say.
I don't believe the supernatural exists, but I don't say that it can't exist. I don't know.
Right. I think that's a.
Although I will stand firm and say I think Christianity is false, and I'm willing to defend that. But as far as some nebulous idea of a deity or supernatural thing, I'm not omniscient. I don't know. I'm not going to try to take the burden of proof against a supernatural realm, because it's hard to define it. I don't even know what it is.
Yep.
But the three
I'll blame it.
The three things that we've talked about is changed life, and two things which I think basically, as Matt Dillahunty would say, are arguments from ignorance. I don't know, therefore supernatural. And
I didn't say it's proof. I just said it's based on what I see.
Probably.
I'm less
I understand. I understand.
And,
But it's still basically saying I don't understand something, therefore I'm leaning towards believing it. Something else.
There's a difference. I just want to make sure you're understanding. There's a difference between not understanding than saying I believe something cannot be explained this way, and saying I think something can be explained this way, but I don't know how. They're different. They're different views, and I think they're both rational views, and there's different cases where you say, well, which are true in other scientific fields, where something cannot be explained by this phenomena, but it can be explained by something else. Whereas you may have originally thought that, this one thing described both of them. Well, it's not. I don't think it's the same way you're describing it as, I don't know, therefore it must be.
Let me give you some possible explanations with logic. And I'm hesitant to go into this because logic can be defined different ways. It can be used as a noun. It can be used as a verb, like do logic. It could be viewed as the three basic laws. I would say when it comes to the fundamentals of logic, let's say the law of identity, that is a property of the universe itself, that you can't say something is itself without having something existing in the first place. And so in a lot of these laws, humans have just observed and have kind of, using language, categorized. Something can't be itself and something else at the same time, for example, the law of non-contradiction. So these are things that are properties of the universe. And so why do they exist? Well, because the universe exists. Why does the universe exist? That's one of those big questions that we all want to know the answer to, that maybe we'll know when we die and see Yahweh, or maybe we won't.
Yeah.
So
for me, it's more of a curiosity. I'm interested, right, how people come to the conclusions of a purely naturalistic world, and it's just something that I'm just interested in how some people come to those conclusions. So it's fun to have conversations about that.
Well, should we end it there then?
Yeah, I think it was fun. It's fun talking to you. I appreciate you carrying along the conversation. All right.
Stay a Christian.
You too.
Take care. All you have to do is press the X.
All right. Bye, Doug.
Bye. Let's see what's in the chat. Reed asked, how can we tell if it actually is a good explanation? Magic can explain things as well. Yeah, I still think his first reason is the most important one, that changed life. The whole idea of love. Then I think the other questions of meaning and purpose come later. Or not, the explanation comes later. Thanks, JD. Yeah, I know it's loud. Well, guys, have a great evening. Thanks, Shane, for the donation. Hey, kids, we're going to Applebee's. Oh, they heard me. We'll see you guys next time.